I'm incredibly excited hearing the presentations there. I'm really excited actually about the way that you can push things forward, starting from something quite small. I think that's extremely cool, and it's something that I'd like to talk to you about today, but at a different level. I want to talk to you about the ability of places like the University of Limerick, or the City and County Council, or the government, in fact, to innovate, to actually produce new things. One of the really interesting things about working in the Kemmy Business School and working with people like Andrew Deverell in the Nexus Innovation Centre is that you can see it happening. You can see it happening. But then you go out and talk to people and they go, you lads in the public sector, sure, you're only hanging around till 65, and all that. That's not quite true. That's not quite true, but it is also certainly true that we haven't achieved a lot of the things that we could have. So this is one of the things I want to talk about today, which is, and it's why there's a question mark at the end, policy innovation. Can you actually change something? Or is it all just rebranding the same old stuff, moving back and forth as you do so? So this is, I love this picture. I love this picture because this is a great image, because the intention is clear, right? But the environment has thrown you something of a curve ball. Now, luckily, the fella's going to land okay. But I had this idea about agency-led innovation. Is it possible for a large public sector organization like the Kemmy Business School, which is, by faculty size, maybe the second largest business school in the country, is it possible for us, or maybe our colleagues in the University of Limerick, to actually do these things? Can we innovate? Can we do these things, specifically with policy? So is it an oxymoron like flash frozen food or fresh frozen food or, government intelligence? Agency-led. Can you do this? Can you do this? And will this be the result at the end of the day? Is this us at the end of the day striving out to do something new and going, it's not working? Now, what we've learned from the previous speakers, Kieran and Colm and Jeff, is that failure isn't such a bad thing. And in fact, you can learn from it, especially if you publicize it. If you say, look, this didn't work out, we're learning something new from it. If you look at it in an experimental focus, which as social scientists we should be thinking about doing. The problem is it's costly, both in time, money, and also in reputation to do so. So will we do it? Could we do it? Should we do it? Okay. If you listen to government ministers at the moment, you get a standard response about what the role of government should be, which is it should set the ground rules, get the pitch right, put the lines there and get out of the way. Government should get out of the way and let the private sector solve all the problems. If there's a market failure, then maybe we should get involved, but maybe not. This policy is most articulated in the Junior Finance Minister Brian Hayes when he said the role of us in the Department of Finance is to act as a gatekeeper. We allow areas to start, to grow, to develop, but we do not get involved. We don't, if you like, get on the pitch. That's a problem when you look at a statistic like this. It's not going to happen. The private sector is not going to solve some of the problems on its own that we've created as a result of the property crash. The red line there is total domestic demand. It's from the first quarter 2007 to the latest available data. And what you can see essentially is a collapse from 4.4 billion to 3.3 billion in total domestic demand. That's how much people buy your stuff. So it's not GDP or GNP or any of this stuff. This is how much stuff is bought. So it's flatlining. You could say, it could go up, it could go down, but what's really important is it's not going to go from there to there. Now, when total domestic demand is down, it means that you're not going to see huge increases in employment, which means unemployment is going to remain a problem, particularly stubborn problem. So what I'd like to talk to you about today is maybe thinking about a way or a tool to come up with a process by which we can reduce long-term unemployment in the Midwest. So I'm not talking about unemployment as a bogey kind of problem. I'm not talking about it as a, God, isn't this terrible? Let's wring our hands for a while on Joe Duffy. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about a scientific question, a hypothesis. Is it possible that we can do this together to solve the problem of long-term unemployment, particularly long-term youth unemployment in Limerick and in the Midwest? That's my proposition to you guys today, and I want to give you an example of something that we did over the summer, which was essentially an idea generation tool located in Limerick City. Okay, there's a brilliant book, a really brilliant book that I urge you all to have a look at. It's by Professor Mariana Mazzucato. She's my colleague at the Institute of New Economic Thinking. She wrote a brilliant book called The Entrepreneurial State. Many of you will have smartphones in your pockets. If you look at the smartphone in your pocket, all of the technologies, all of them that exist on the smartphone that allow you to tweet and look up pictures of Justin Bieber, all of those technologies were not developed by the private sector. They were all developed by the public sector. In many cases, by the way, the defense departments of the United States and the UK. Her point, and it's encapsulated in the statement, the state has not just fixed markets. In other words, it doesn't just get in there when things go wrong, when nobody provides roads. It does not fix markets. It doesn't repair market failure. It actively creates them through research. In fact, if you look at R&D spend, the R in that R&D, most of it actually comes from the public sector. The private sector, in fact, does the development bit. And she's really got a huge amount of research to back this up. I believe in what she's doing, and I think that she's right. What it means is that the public-private sector divide is a falsehood. This notion that the private sector does all the innovating and the public sector just sort of waits there to slow it down. You know, that's not true. And it's not true in the long run, and it's certainly not true in the short run. So the state, if you like, and we are the state, I'm a public servant, we could get in and we could try to solve these problems if we so chose. So this summer, the Kemmy Business School, the School of Architecture in UL, had an idea, and the idea was very simple. We called it the Intelligence Unit, and we decided, could we design policies for the Midwest region? Now, what's really interesting is we got out of the university. We've an amazing campus here. I hope you enjoy it when you're here. But we decided, you know what, we're a load of middle-class people. You know, if we're a load of middle-class people in a beautiful campus, we try to address the idea of, you know, can we design new businesses? Can we think about the special areas of conservation? Can we think about the Georgian core? Can we think about how these processes interact? We better be in the city. And luckily enough, we got a space in the Limerick City Art Gallery. A relatively refined space, but you never know, lads, you never know. What was interesting is we made it open to the public. So we had the researchers for 9 weeks. We hired researchers, we won some money, and with other funding from the business school, we hired about 20 researchers, and we worked there all summer. And it was a public space. So we had people coming in to visit the art gallery going like, what are you doing? What are you doing? What's going on? And we had a really good chance to talk with them and get a sense of what they thought was important. People writing down ideas. We had people from many aspects of life. And what we did was we came up with a series of policies. And these were policies as a civil servant would have to design them. I'll give you a good example. The picture to the right there is one of the ideas that we had come up with. Now, we'd come up with hundreds of ideas. This is a policy. The policy was, can we link together food networks so that we could help very small producers of artisanal food, you know, particularly jam, it turns out. People make a lot of jam. Or cheese or butter. So what you're looking at here, each dot, this is obviously just the West region. There's Shannon Airport. These are these different producers. This is their distance from UL's milk market. The idea was we would produce a technology, a very simple technology to reduce transaction costs and get these guys and get their stuff in a chill chain from there to there in a wholesale food market. It's a really simple idea. Really what it requires is $5,000, a phone, you know, and nothing else. But what you needed was this data, okay? You needed this data. These data came from architecture students, they came from marketing students, they came from economics students. But we didn't call them students, we called them researchers. I said something very interesting, which was something that came right back to the culture element that was mentioned. I said, this is not a student project. I know this for two reasons. Number one, my name is going on top of it. Number two, I'm paying you. Work your asses off. And they did. And the idea that had come previously about interdisciplinarity, no economist could produce that. No architect could produce that. Only an economist and an architect can produce that. And only a marketer can say, lads, just don't make it black and white. We did some amazing things. It was the most exciting, non-boring thing I've done in a long time. I was buzzing after every day. It was brilliant. We did some really cool stuff. In addition to producing a series of projects about food networks, we did a series of surveys and a series of ideas about the Georgian core. What you're looking at here these are just tiny pieces of a massive installation that we put into the Limerick City Gallery at the end of the process. These numbers are these are areas of the Georgian core which are empty at the moment. The black dots there, and the black dots represented by their size. These are bits that are actually vacant and or derelict. You can see here you can see that it's concentrated on one block basically, but we essentially have a fair amount of empty space there. We said, right, can we come up with a private sector solution with a public sector focus? What we said was, can you imagine putting a piece of the University of Limerick in there? An innovation hub, where you had students living on one or two floors, and you had staff working below them. Can you imagine what that would do to the city centre? Can you imagine how that would work? And we didn't just say, gosh, wouldn't that be nice? We actually went to BDO Limerick. We were incredibly generous with their time, and we said, can you cost out 3 different options to obtain finance for work like this? And they said yes, and they were, Gerard Holliday and his team were amazing helping us. We got help from everywhere, and everyone gave their time incredibly generously. But I guess my point here is that is a mapping exercise combined with economic expertise and a lot of framing in terms of the marketers that produced an idea that wasn't just gosh aren't the Jordan core, we actually had the nuts and the bolts of it. Okay, we looked at education. It's a fact, for example, that if you look at Limerick City and County, there's an educational deficit, a very large educational deficit. And this won't be surprising to you, I presume. And we actually came up with a way to reduce that. We asked the question, would it be possible to educate 5,000 people to Leaving Cert Standard in under a year? The answer is yes. Actually, it is. So, these are some of our extremely good-looking students, and that's part of our installation. It ran in the Limerick City Gallery for a long time. The point is not that we had excited young people producing nice, colourful objects. These are good things, and they're of value in and of themselves. The point is these are hard, extremely well thought out ideas that can work because they've encountered and understood the institutional context in which they sit. Okay? So now, it's a template. This is a template. It wasn't perfect. We only had 3 specialties: architecture, economics, and marketing. Imagine if we had a few engineers in there. Imagine if we had a few bioscientists in there. That'd be amazing. But I guess my point is, it's a template for policy generation. The idea, the culture was think big, but also think small. Every big idea has to be implemented by someone somewhere at a cost to them, to you, to someone else. Think those things through. We have a Facebook page. Check it out. All the installations are up there. It was amazing. This is a template for policy generation because it takes us out of the university. It puts us into the city. So these students were running around the place, having lunch, looking at, drinking coffee, staring at the problems that the city has, and that changed their solutions. Okay? The culture beat the process, but the process was amazing. It really was. So here's another big idea: youth unemployment. Today, the Taoiseach is attending a summit of European leaders on the problem of youth unemployment in Europe. It is the single biggest problem that Europe has. It's not current account imbalances, it's not GDP growth, nothing. The biggest problem in Europe right now, without a shadow of a doubt, is youth unemployment. Here it is. Here's Ireland with 28.5% youth unemployment. The unemployment rate in Ireland is around 13.2% at the moment. Overall, young people are disproportionately unemployed. This is an incredibly bad thing. And you can see where the problem areas are: Greece, Spain, Italy, Portugal, Slovakia, and Ireland. And you might go, sure, that's not so bad. We're in the green. It's all right. It's not. It's really not. The reason that it's not is there's been a fair amount of youth emigration, number one. And number two, there's a lot of long-term youth unemployment. A 25-year study in the US showed that when the unemployment rate went up by 1%, the youth unemployment rate went up by 4.4%. And it stayed up. When you're unemployed during your entry to the labour market, it damages your income profile for the rest of your life. It reduces the average earnings that you will ever earn by 5 to 10%. It's an incredible statistic, because if you think about it, these young people are not only a draw on the state, it means that when they do get work, it's going to be much lower for the rest of their lives. That's taxes that they don't earn, living standards that they don't have. It's an incredibly bad thing, okay? And it's a societal problem that we have. It's also a local problem that we have, because while the national rate is 28.5%, it's closer to 50% here, okay? This is a societal crime. This is something that we should not allow to happen. And it is happening. And it's not happening in, like, Slovakia. It's happening here. We should do something about it. Again, not in the Joe Duffy, oh, Jesus, that's terrible. Oh, it is, yeah. No, not like that, okay? We should do something about it. And I would argue that we should do something in an experimental mode. We should try to come up with a series of policies that we can actually implement. And we can do it very quickly if we want to. I think this is something that will be extremely well supported nationally and internationally if we tried and we've succeeded. And if we fail, at least we would have tried and we would have gained useful information that, by the way, could be ported into France, Spain, Germany, Poland. Why not? Why not is my question. 2 days ago, Thomas Confrey, Yvonne McCarthy and Ben Sherman from the Central Bank showed this table in a recent report: re-employment probabilities for unemployed workers in Ireland. So this is somebody who's 15 to 24 years, who's been unemployed for 5 months, 12 months, 25 months, and so forth. And what you see is people with lower levels of education tend to have very low unemployment probabilities. But notice this change from 6 to 11 to 20 to 24. This change here. Okay, just look there. If you got medium level of education, there's a 21% probability that you'll still be unemployed, or that you will be unemployed in the next period. That drops to 14.3, and then drops to 10, and then to 6.4. This is the moment that you'd like everybody to have their interventions. But actually what happens is policy really only switches on here, and actually the loss from 1 year to a year and a half of being unemployed is not just a loss of labour market mobility, it's a loss of skills, confidence, there's a whole range of things that you don't have anymore after 18 months or 2 years unemployed. Okay, it's a huge problem. And if you think if you think our employment probability is, it's all a bit kind of messy and a little bit waffly, well, it's not. Youth unemployment is a problem in the Midwest. So just to give you some really concrete numbers, the last time they surveyed this, which is a month ago, there were 2,419 people aged between 25 and 34 on the live register for more than 3 years in the Midwest. More than 3 years. That means they've been unemployed longer than probably most of our students have been in college here. For people between 20 and 24 years, that number is 819. So these are people who probably have never had any labour market experience. Okay? It's a genuine societal problem. It's a problem that we could help to solve right here today. It's not a question of whether we should or not. It's a question of why haven't we? Again, if you think, well, the unemployment rate's going down, this is the percentage change in unemployment in the Midwest. So you can see there's a lot of variability, as one would expect, because there's a lot of churn, there's a lot of good jobs being created as well as the ones being destroyed. But what you can see there's zero. You can see that as it goes negative, it's jumping up positive again. The point here is that even though the general trend is decreasing in unemployment, and that is a good thing, what's happening in terms of, by the way, this is youth unemployment, is that this number keeps cycling up, keeps cycling negative. We should be worried about that and continue to be worried about that, as well as being worried about all the people who have been made unemployed in 2012, 2013, and years before. Okay, here's my proposal. A pilot. Use the IU structure to look at appropriate solutions to the Midwest unemployment problem. This is and would be an agency-level policy innovation. I don't think it's an oxymoron, and I don't think that we would make it so. I think we have a history of doing interesting and cool and non-boring things here. I think with a bit of help, we could do something really, really interesting, and I'd be very excited to get involved if other people were too. So I'd love to hear your thoughts. Thank you very much.